Hi, this is Boyd Neal, and this is session 11 of SMD 102. The focus this week is on structuring the social web team. However, the focus of this video is something different. What I want to do is summarize a few core ideas with respect to content strategy, which was the focus of last week's session. So view this as a summary of some basic ideas about the development of content strategy for the social web. So as you probably know and have heard, there are essentially three types of media. There's paid media, owned media, and earned media. Some people add in the mix shared media, but I think that the point is debatable because shared is some kind of combination of owned and earned. But paid media is when you pay to lever a channel. And that means advertising in any medium, print, broadcast, includes Facebook ads, promoted tweets, promoted content, paid search, sponsorships, etc. Owned media is when you own and control the channel. That is such things as websites and mobile sites, blogs, your Facebook page, promotional items, your other social channels, and increasingly, and we'll discuss this, and perhaps we won't get into it in too much detail today, but many companies are now developing their own content hubs, virtually online magazines that they own and control all of the content. And then there's earned media, and that's when you reach out to interact through third-party channels. Traditionally in public relations, that's been through mainstream media, but today it includes things like your Twitter account, your Facebook page, a YouTube channel, an Instagram community that you've established, and it incorporates things like creating word of mouth or buzz, or, if you're lucky, being able to create a video or concept or idea or infographic that goes viral. So paid, owned, and earned media are the basic framework within which you think about content. But why bother saying anything on these channels? Why, and what do you say? And this is where content strategy comes in. Into the thing that drives decision making, and there's a moral psychologist called Jonathan Haidt who wrote a book called The Righteous Mind, Why Good People Are Divided by Politics and Religion. But one of the things that he points out and argues is that intuition drives how we make decisions. And he says, quote, "Intuitions can be shaped by reasoning, especially when reasons are embedded in a friendly conversation or an emotionally compelling novel, movie, or news story." In other words, if intuition is what drives how we make decisions, then being able to influence your intuition, the intuition of your customers, your audiences, your constituents, will help you in terms of them making a decision whether to buy a product or to support you or whatever. And how do you influence intuition? By reasoning in a friendly conversation or an emotionally compelling novel, movie, or news story, or in fact any kind of story. And so we'll talk a lot about storytelling. The other thing is that what's become evident, and I just want to quote a couple of excerpts from some promotional material from a company called Group SJR, which says, quote, "The act of sharing smart, relevant information intensifies the sense of connectedness among networks. That is, knowledge is really social currency." The other thing that quality content does is it creates permission to share via the intimate pathways of email and texting versus social channel. In other words, the more quality content that you produce, the happier people are to actually use intimate channels, not social channels, but intimate one-to-one channels. So they become, if the content is such that people want to share it, then those people become influencers for you through their networks. Now, there are essentially 6 types of content that can be used and created on social channels. The first is original content, obviously. That's content you create for your audience. Then there is co-created content. That is hiring others, bloggers, videographers, to work with you to create content for your audiences. Number 3 is curated content. That is, curated content is selecting content and presenting it in a meaningful and organized way for your audience. The 4th type of content is aggregated content. That is using things like search algorithms and RSS feeds to pull content based on specific keywords and phrases. So you aggregate content on your site. The fifth way, I think we're at 5, is licensed content. That is content that's created by someone else and available to be licensed by you. That can include images, words, videos. It can include cartoons. It can also include syndicated content from bloggers or from news sources. And then the sixth type of content is user-generated content. So it's important to keep those 6 in mind: original, co-created, curated, aggregated, licensed, and user-generated, because those types of content are, and that terminology is used often in the development of content strategy. Then you have to look at, what do you intend with the content? And there are, again, essentially 5 things that you can use content to do. And strategy is built on selecting which of these 5 intents you want to use your content hub for, your content platform. So there is persuasion, there is informing people, there is validating what they already think, there's instructing them, and there is entertaining them. So again, persuade, inform, validate, instruct, and entertain. Those are the 5 basic types of content intent. So now we come to building strategies. And again, there are about 4 basic strategies behind how organizations develop content for their social platforms. The first is the layered narrative, and I'm going to talk a little bit more about that, because that's where you engage your community through storytelling, and it's becoming more and more dominant, especially for companies like Coca-Cola or Target, who've actually created content hubs that are virtual magazines. Coca-Cola's homepage now is Coca-Cola Journey, and it is essentially a magazine. Target has also created something called the Bullseye View, which again is a magazine in which there is original content and curated content on a whole variety of subjects developed, and through it they create a story, a layered story. The second is micro-targeting. That is where you're converting community values into a persuasion matrix. So you target very specific communities, you determine their values, and then you create materials that persuade them of something. The third is seeking and converting. That is where you identify purchasing decision points and you figure out content that will engage with consumers at those purchasing decision points. And then the fourth is social customer service. That is where you're looking at social media as a service channel to put your best foot forward. Now you determine which of these 4 strategies, layered narrative, micro-targeting, seeking and converting, and social customer service, you determine which of these strategies is going to work best for you given your business objectives or your organization's objectives. So for example, governments are likely to use a micro-targeting strategy, whereas nonprofits that are seeking to influence the emotion of people will likely tend to focus more on the layered narrative approach. So just a couple of words about layered narrative, or sometimes called storytelling. There's essentially 3 components to it. What's the story? How do you tell the story? And where do you share the story? What's the story? How to tell the story, and where to share the story. And you build your strategy on answering those 4 questions. So with what's the story, it could be, who are the people most interested in knowing it? What do people need to know? That kind of thing. How to tell the story is asking questions. How would people best experience the story? Can an infographic complement a blog post, for example? What formats or approaches can best complement the primary story experience? And then finally, where do you share the story? That brings us back to paid, earned, owned, and shared. Those are the layers. So you use some combination of paid, earned, owned, and shared in order to expose the story or distribute the story. And the results are some kind of action or outcome. Finally, what kind of stories drive engagement on social platforms? Well, the Nieman Lab, which is an organization that studies how journalism is changing, did a review of a bunch of local stories on Facebook or on local online news, and they determined there's essentially 9 types of stories that drive engagement. The first is what they call place explainers. Where are we now? What's unique? What's special? There are crowd pleaser stories, stories that engage people because they're local and it helps them experience themselves as a community. Then there are, of course, curiosity stimulators, interesting information, facts, that kind of thing that people just like to know. It's often why you see, 12 ways to do something, or the 11 best cat stories, that kind of thing. Then there are news explainers, that is information that helps you understand better the news. Fifth is major breaking news, that is obviously, in the case of Toronto, anytime Rob Ford does something stupid, which happens too frequently these days, but the social platforms of online news services find that breaking news is also drives interaction and engagement. Number 6 is feel-good smilers, that is images and videos of things like cats and dogs doing funny things or children doing funny things. They increase engagement. The 7th is topical buzzers, that is often, for example, that can be celebrity information. As useless as it is, nevertheless, people love to hear about what celebrities are doing. So that's the 7th story type that drives engagement. The 8th is provocative controversies. That is, again, Rob Ford is a good example, but it also can include demonstrations, protests, community action against development, for example. And then finally, the 9th type of story that drives engagement on social platforms are awe-inspiring visuals. So there's a basic introduction to the way in which content can be understood and developed. And I look forward to reading your blogs to find out whether or not they demonstrate an understanding of content from the perspective of what you actually produce.